Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to another Supatease video. And in this one, I'm going to be bringing my 10.0.7 tournament tier list. So we've got the Arena World Championship finals going on this weekend, twitch.tv/Warcraft. We've got the top 8 for North America and Europe. And I thought it would be fun to make a tier list to start talking about what are the likelihoods of each specialization's chance of success to be able to win the whole thing, being the highest tier here, or not even being seen in tournament play, and start discussing some of the reasons as to why that might be the case. So more of a fun and entertaining video. We'll get to see if my guesses here or my estimations are going to be correct and accurate at the end of it. So a bit of a prediction as well. So it should be a lot of fun. And if you're interested in staying up to date with news related to World of Warcraft, you're always ahead of the competition, entertaining and educational content, then do make sure to hit the subscribe button. Your support is greatly appreciated on my long-term goal of getting to 100,000 subscribers. So thank you. Let's get started though. We've got Affliction Warlock. Now, Affliction Warlock does a tremendous amount of damage, pretty much doesn't bring anything else to the table. It is heavily countered by a lot of the specializations that are good right now, being Fistweaver monks and even Restoration shamans, with its main win condition being to run the enemy healer out of mana. When the best healers can't run out of mana, we're not even going to see it. It's just not going to be the case. It's not offering anything else to the table, and other classes can even do comparable damage while offering so many other things as well. So Affliction Warlocks, I'm sorry, guys. I don't think we're going to even see it. Arcane Mage. Now, we saw a tremendous amount of Arcane Mage in the earlier stages of the tournament in previous patches leading up to this point, which means that a lot of the players have a lot of practice and experience on it. So even though maybe its performance isn't as excellent as it has been in the past, it still probably has some likelihood to pop up. While a lot of pro players are saying like this might be the first tournament that Rogue Mage doesn't win or doesn't do very well, I'm not betting against Rogue Mage, so I still think it's probably going to be a mid-tier chance that we see it. I'd rather not go completely polarized to not even see it or says wins the whole thing. I think that it's still, Rogue Mage is still going to have some possibilities, even given the current meta, and with how much practice everybody has invested in Arcane and how many we saw, I think it's likely that we will see it, and it could have some success. Arms Warrior. Not a lot of players picked this up. Rogue was a lot more prevalent. I think Ret Paladin is going to be a lot more locked in than Arms Warrior specifically. I could see it winning the whole thing. Ret Warrior is really popular, but I also think Ret Warrior has some hard counters that teams and tournaments will likely look to exploit, which could prevent it from going all of the way. But I think given its durability, its synergy, we got players like Blizzo in EU that could possibly pick up Warrior here, that you'll probably see it at least a little bit, but I'm a little bit hesitant to say that it's going to win the whole thing. Assassination Rogue. Now, this is a spec that we saw basically 100% locked in, or Subtlety Rogue, for quite a long time. So there's a lot of rogues in the tournament, but right now Rogue is considered to be, one of the worst possible specializations you could bring. Just, you're not able to kill Ret Paladins, and if you can't kill them, you can't kill their allies because they're going to assist them with too many defensives and utilities that remove your stuns and prevent your offensive cooldown. So Assassination Rogue, given that Demo Lock and Ret Paladin is so prevalent, I don't want to completely count it out again because so many players have invested a lot of time into it to make it work, and Rogue Mage is Rogue Mage regardless of the patch or what you may think of it. So it might still have a chance here. It's a little bit lower, a little bit less likely in my mind. But because of how many players that have invested in it, I'm sure some of them probably haven't had the time to put into other classes, or maybe just aren't able to pick up the other classes to other people's levels, so they'll probably play it, but they're probably not going to see much success. Beast Mastery Hunter. Now, what spec of Hunter are we going to see, right? Like, we saw Jellybeans in NA really styling on Marksmanship Hunter. We've seen a couple Beast Masteries, Survival from Big Mix in EU. So Hunter spec is actually widely diverse. I think Beast Mastery is likely to be one of the more safe selections. Is anybody really going to be running a Ret Paladin Hunter, though? We didn't see any teams running it up to this point. It would be kind of an alt comp. In the past, we've seen Golden Guardians run Ret Hunter, so like possibly their team could look to bring it out. I could see it having a shot. I'm not gonna say that it's gonna win the whole thing, just because the synergies with Demo Lock and with Ret Paladin. Well, Demo Lock's not really there. With Ret Paladin it is, but not a lot of teams have it. So it's a powerful spec on its own. So I could see like a team or something picking it up and possibly doing well with it. But I think it's probably not likely to win the whole thing. Demonology Warlock. This is likely going to win the whole thing. Whether or not it wins the whole thing in both regions, unsure, because we got things like Elemental Shaman Demonology Lock, Ret Paladin Demonology Lock. These types of combinations are likely going to be very popular, with the Fistweaver healer, or even in Europe with the Resto Druid healer. I think Demonology is likely going to have a really rock star performance here in this weekend's tournament, just due to its raw output, its value, its crowd control, and its survivability. Destruction Warlock, similar to Demonology, I think that this spec could win the whole thing. So I'm actually putting it on the same tier as Demonology, even though Demonology is stealing the show. I could see some possibilities for Destruction to also have a deep run. Maybe A tier, maybe close to win the whole thing. I think a lot of people are starting to shift in and start getting like gelled in on certain specializations being clearly better than others. And I think because of that, maybe it's less likely that we see Destruction as much as Demonology, but it's definitely still really good and could have a shot, right? Devastation Evoker. If Trill doesn't play it, I don't think anyone's going to play it. Trill is literally the only reason I think that you might even see it. But even their team, I'm doubting it. I don't think we're going to see Devastation Evoker, unfortunately, this weekend. It's a coin flip class. If it gets locked in, it's going to get locked in by Trill, and I haven't seen their team practicing it at all, and I don't think anybody else is invested in the spec, so I don't think we're going to see it at all. Discipline Priest, there's quite a few priests, given how popular it was leading up into this patch. I'm thinking players like Waylor or Flay who might pick it up, but I feel like it's really struggling at the moment to be able to maintain its mana, even maintain its longevity. So I think much like Assassination Rogue, we're probably going to see it, but I don't expect it to be doing fantastically well in tournament play. Elemental Shaman, EU really loves this spec. NA, we're probably not going to see it like at all. I can't imagine we're going to see Elemental Shaman in North America at all. But in Europe, I definitely could see it, similar to Arcane Mage. I think the Demo Ellie comp was really popular, and likely is still going to be, just because Demo is so strong. So for me, I think Ellie, at least in EU, is likely going to be up here in the A tier, possibly having some opportunities to make a really deep run. We saw Ellie make it to the finals of the Liquid tournament, but even in the Liquid tournament, players hadn't had really a lot of time to adapt to figure out what was really going on. So I think Ellie does have a decent chance, at least in EU. For Enhancement Shaman, I feel like the only person that we could maybe even possibly see play this is going to be Swapsy, and he's probably going to play Ret Paladin. So the odds that we see Enhancement, I'm probably going to be putting pretty low. He's going to play Ret. There's no way, right? There's no way he played. No, I don't think we're going to see it. Unfortunately, I don't think we're going to see it. Well, I think it's a really fun specialization to play. It makes me feel like a god when I'm playing it. I don't think it's going to be able to outcompete what the other melee hybrids or melee classes are just currently offering at a tournament level of play. I could only see it in a situation where you're fighting double caster, which is why I'm somewhat thinking like maybe Swapsy plays some type of enhancement comp, but maybe his roster doesn't have anything synergized for it either at this point, so probably not going to see it. Feral Druid, now we've got Tony Feral on EU. They're running a lot of jungle, but I think they're picking up a lot of Ret. So jungle, it's probably okay, but not fantastic. It's probably C tier is kind of like old meta, whereas like they've put a lot of practice into it, so maybe they pull it out just because it's their mains, but they're not really playing it because they think that it's going to be the thing that wins. But we could see it just because it's their mains, given this weekend's rosters. Fire Mage, again, there's a lot of Rogue Mage teams that qualified. Whether or not Fire comes into play against Ret Paladins, I'm imagining it's probably more Frost or Arcane. Frost is really good in the demo locks for the AoE damage that you're going to be able to pump out and build. So Fire Mage, I don't want to completely count it out. I think that it could have a chance to be seen in some of these comps. It's probably not going to perform well. So you might see it. This is like a might see tier, but it's probably not going to do well. Frost DK, this is, again, if Mez plays this, it's going to be the only one, but he's been practicing Ret Paladin. So if the person who's running this spec the only person that you're likely going to see play it has been practicing Ret Paladin, I'm probably going to put it here just because, again, maybe they go back to comfort. Maybe there's some situation where their alts are not working. So it's like maybe there's a chance you see Mez play it, but it's probably not going to do well. Frost Mage, very similar to Arcane. I think it's probably going to be middle. We saw some teams playing Warrior Frost Mage leading up into this tournament, doing a lot of damage with that composition. And I think with Demonology Warlock, it can be a really good class pairing as well. And Rogue Mage, of course, we don't want to count that out. So maybe some likelihood to see this again, just given the experience of the players in this tournament. They have so much time invested on Mage, is the main reason why I think that this is even possible. Fury Warrior, we're not even going to see it. It's just not comparable to Arms Warrior, Sharpened Blade, upgrade, and having Warbreaker as frequently as you do as Arms Warrior it just puts your burst on a whole other level that Fury Warrior just isn't able to hit at the moment. So unlikely we're going to see it. Holy Paladin, I think we're only going to see one player play this, and it's Brain. And his team wins every time. So, and I mean, this might be the tournament that really tests him to play something else. And what happens when he can't play Paladin? Because I honestly think Paladin is the worst healer right now. So if he won the thing with Holy Paladin being the worst healer, it would be really impressive. So like, do I put it on wins the whole thing because Brain exists? It's definitely, we're not even seeing it in EU. So in EU, it's down here. But in NA, might win the whole thing. I'm not sure if he's relying on it. So like, I'm probably putting it here on C just because of Brain. One singular player is the only reason why Holy Paladin is even going to be getting a chance at winning this, and it's because of Brain. Now, Holy Priest, Zenlin, he's probably only going to play this. I think that he's just a Holy Priest one trick, so we'll definitely see it. So it's not going to be a don't even see. We're not going to see it on NA, I don't think. But I think it is sleeper. I think people are underestimating Holy. I think that it's going to have a bit of a shot here, possibly. We're going to at least see it. And they put on a lot of entertaining games leading up to the finals at this point, so I'm excited to see what they can do with it. But probably a little bit less than likely of winning the whole thing. Demon Hunter, we saw a lot of Demon Hunter Ellie, Demon Hunter Death Knight earlier on in the tournaments. I think that composition has honestly fallen off quite a bit, but those players might only main Demon Hunter, so it's probably similar here. Like, might be a chance to see it, but I really think Ret Paladin is probably going to be the spec that steals the show, but I don't want to completely write it off. It's still a really good specialization, well-rounded, and it's kind of interesting how the tournament tier list compared to like a ladder tier list would look in regards to this, because Demon Hunter is a really good performer on ladder, but I think in this situation, it's probably going to be rough. Marksmanship Hunter, again, this class packs a lot of damage. And we saw a Mage Hunter composition doing really well here from Flop's team. Jellybeans is playing a lot of Marksmanship Hunter. I think it's more likely to be seen in NA than it is in EU. It's definitely got, maybe it's got a better shot than Mage. I feel like this is yeah, I kind of feel like it's a Hunter patch. I could see a Marksmanship Hunter coming out and doing something, maybe high B tier for Marksmanship Hunter. Boomkin, unless Dippy plays it, he's in the gauntlet. He's got to make it through that. I doubt that he's putting his cards on Boomkin. I think if Boomkin is all right, if you were insane, like possibly you could make it work. I've been seeing a couple of Boomkin comps on ladder. I kind of doubt that we're going to see it. There's not enough proof of it being as powerful as the most powerful specs that I think people will safely lock it in. But I think it could have possibilities. Mistweaver Monk, this probably wins the whole thing. This is the first tournament in a while where I'm saying Mistweaver Monk might win the whole thing. Fistweaver is so good, and with Ret Paladin to break you out of crowd control and save you in those emergency moments, is just going to enable you to do more damage than any other healer can do. You got no mana constraints. You're basically effectively turning your team into triple DPS. It's a really good spec at the moment. Outlaw Rogue, we're not going to see it. It just doesn't bring enough burst damage. Ret Paladin's completely hard counter it. You're going to get steamrolled. There's no way we see Outlaw Rogue. Might be even the worst spec to try and bring into a tournament at the moment. If somebody brings Outlaw Rogue, I would be really surprised. Preservation Evoker, there's a good chance that we see this with how much time X is invested in this, and even Sea-Doo. There's some likelihood that we see it. I think that it's one of the best damage dealing healers, but its main constraint for not winning the whole thing is it can get dampened and it can run out of mana. But I think that it is a solid pick. Similarly, Resto Druid, while I have personal biases to think that it's pretty weak right now, in EU at least, there's so many people heavily invested in it that I think there's a chance that we see it, possibly an opportunity for it to win the whole thing, just because of how experienced the EU Druids are, and probably their reluctance to switch to many other things. But if they don't switch, I think Fistweaver is likely going to outperform them. Ret Paladin, like this is ding, 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 ding. This is your winner spec. If you don't have a Ret Paladin on your team for this tournament this weekend, I do not think that you are winning. At least at some point, you're going to need it. Unless somebody finds a counter for it, I think it's going to be pretty tough. Resto Shaman, similar to Fistweaver, whether or not it's going to be able to win, I think NA is likely going to see more Resto Shaman than EU. A lot of the highest competing Resto Shamans aren't competing this year. So you know, that's why I also think Resto Druid will see more of it, or Preservation Evoker on EU or Mistweaver, is just because a lot of the healers in the EU region are mostly focused on that class, or that class range, and not so much Resto Shaman. But I think Resto Shaman is really good and likely going to be really prevalent in NA. So if you're Resto Shaman, you definitely don't want to miss NA. Shadow Priest, this was like the best comp for the entirety up to this point. Shadow Priest Rogue. So like, how good is Shadow Priest Rogue going to be? I could see Shadow Priest Rogue Shaman, you know, popping up again here from the Golden Guardians if they wanted to lock in like their main composition. So I could see it as like a B tier lock-in spec. Ret Paladin Dispel is also getting nerfed. So wait a minute. Maybe this is changing my tier list a bit, because Ret Paladin Dispel getting nerfed means mages and hunters are a lot better, and Shadow Priest is a lot better. Is this changing my tier list a little bit? I think it would be dumb not to put Shadow Priest up here if I'm putting Ellie up here, if I'm being honest. I think that would be dumb. So I think Shadow Priest with the Dispel changes could make it a little bit more relevant. And it's just such a solid spec, so synergized, especially with Rogue and with how good Resto Shaman is. Don't want to count that composition out. Subtlety Rogue, again, I still think the spec has opportunities, but with Ret and Demo, those specs, especially with how strong they are typically the counter to Subtlety Rogue, because Demo locks can peel you with their pet while they're CC'd. Rets can counter your stun locks, and because of how tanky they are, you can't really kill them or take them on as targets, and with how popular they likely are going to be, things like Arms Warrior, Destro Lock, even Shadow Priest to some extent, I think it'll be tough to break through those defenses. I don't want to completely write it out. Again, Rogue Mage, things like that. And in tournament play, we have some of the most experienced and top level rogues competing this weekend. So even though it's, I think on paper doesn't have much of a chance, given that experience could be a whole nother ballpark, right? Like a first time Ret versus the best rogues in the game. I think there might be a shot for them. Survival Hunter, I think Big Mix is the only person that we might see play this. They seem really dead set on like staying to their main composition. So we'd probably see a Subtlety Rogue from their team, and we'll probably see a Survival Hunter also from their team. So we will see it. Whether or not they're going to be able to win with it, they're running Holy Priest, Sub Rogue, Survival Hunter. It'd be kind of tough. I think it would be kind of tough. But maybe that Dispel change to Ret. They're not removing their freezing traps and their fear so easily. Maybe there's a shot. Unholy DK, again, Death Knight, Demon Hunter, maybe a Warrior Death Knight at some point. But even then, I think it's unlikely that we really see it. I think Death Knight is, I want to say maybe here, but at the same time, nah. I don't think anybody has really been focusing on Death Knight. I don't see it, especially if Priest isn't as popular. It was getting locked into Priest, but I think Priest might be falling off a bit. It's probably like here. Pretty low likelihood that we see it. Low likelihood that it wins. Windwalker Monk, I'm kind of doubting that we see it. Which is pretty astonishing because it's such on the ladder, right? It performs really well on the ladder. So you would think that you would like to see it. It performs way better than like majority of the specs that you're seeing on the don't even see it tier, but you're just going to get KO'd by stun locks, outbursted, tough to move around. Trill is like and Chun-Li are like the few main Windwalker monks, I think, competing, and they seem pretty set on other classes and other specializations. Did they break out a Windwalker Death Knight out of like main desperation is the only thing I'm thinking for Windwalker here. I really doubt it. And after seeing some ladder games as well for Windwalker, and 3v3 ladder, not solo shuffle, I really doubt it. I don't think we're going to see it. So we've got our tier list here. Ret, Demo, Mistweaver, Resto Shaman, likely going to be really high odds. Maybe some combination of these specs with them on the top side, or some of the old meta that we had seen leading up to this point, given that they've got so much experience on those classes, could be having some possibilities to make a run through this weekend. But what do you think of this tier list for the tournament? How accurate do you think it's going to be? Are you betting on some specializations that I completely missed out on that are going to be able to win this? Do you think something is just totally off base? Let me know in the comments down below. Other than that, thank you very much for watching the video, and I will catch you in the next one.